What's up, everyone? Professor Leis here. In this video, we're going to talk about the rhetorical devices: ethos, pathos, logos, and kairos. Because we've read chapter 1 of Everything's an Argument, this should serve as review. It's important, however, that we have a firm grasp of these fundamental concepts, because as we'll see, effective arguments very much depend on the interplay of these four rhetorical devices. Let's take a look at ethos. So ethos pertains to the realm of credibility, anything that has to do with trustworthiness, character, credibility. The way that Lunsford and Ruskovich define it in the glossary of Everything's an Argument on page 536 is the self-image a writer creates to define a relationship with readers. In arguments, most writers try to establish an ethos that suggests authority, fairness, and credibility. So I want to focus on that word relationship that they use. That's a really good way of thinking about ethos. We want to build a relationship with our audience, whether it's a reader or a physical audience if we're giving a presentation. It's really important to establish that relationship. And so that's where building that connection to the audience comes in, establishing common ground, appealing to shared values or beliefs that we might have in common with the audience. All of those things are in the realm of ethos and can help our audience trust us or help us gain that sense of trust with our audience, right? Now, the word ethics or ethical comes from this word ethos. And so if we describe something as ethical, generally what we mean is that it is of good moral character. The values that it appeals to are generally agreed upon as good, right? So that's where that comes into play, ethos. So building a sense of trustworthiness, authority, establishing common ground, being fair. So we want to make sure that our audience can trust us in that way, right? So that's the realm of ethos. Pathos. So this is all emotional appeals, right? Anything pertaining to emotion or passion. Now, the way that Lunsford and Ruskovich define it on page 535 is a strategy in which a writer tries to generate specific emotions such as fear, envy, anger, or pity in an audience to dispose it to accept a claim. So if we're trying to dispose our audience to accept a claim, it means we're trying to soften them up, right? Warm them up, invite them into going along with our argument, right? And so a way to do that is to appeal to their emotions, whether that's fear, pity, hate, disgust, joy, laughter, that's a part of joy, right? All of those things can help soften or warm an audience up to us, right? Now the word pathetic, that's where it comes from, pathos. And if you describe something as pathetic, these days it kind of has a negative connotation, but really that just means that we take pity on it, right? That's where it originates. But now we use the word pathos to describe the whole range of emotions. Logos. The word logic, of course, comes from this word logos. So anything in the realm of logic or reason is the realm of logos. So facts, evidence, statistics, examples, even appealing to common sense, all of that is logos. Now, something that often gets overlooked when discussing logos is organization and structure, right? It's really important that things logically connect. And so if things don't logically connect, say our argument is disjointed or things just don't make sense, that's not going to invite our readers to go along with us, right? So that could turn our readers off and in turn lower our credibility as a writer, right? So anything in the realm of logic pertains to logos. Now the way that Lunsford and Ruskovich define it on page 539 is thus: a strategy in which a writer uses facts, evidence, and reason to convince audience members to accept a claim. Now, the fourth one often gets overlooked, and so I'm not surprised if most of us don't know how to pronounce this word. So let's all say it. Kairos. Kairos. Go on, say it. Kairos. Say it out loud. Kairos. Don't worry if anyone's looking. Kairos. All right. Kairos, that pertains to the opportune moment. Okay. Now, the way that Lunsford and Ruskovich define it on page 538, they say the opportune moment in arguments, the timeliness of an argument, and the most opportune ways to make it. Okay. So this is essentially like the right argument for the right time, right place, right time kind of thing. Now, something else that is in the realm of kairos is context or relevance, right? So if something is not relevant, then it's not the right argument to make at that time, right? So relevance is very much a part of this context, the surrounding information needed for something to work, right? For an argument to be effective. Now let's think about how these things really work. So it's really important to keep in mind that these different rhetorical devices do not typically function on their own. They work together to help convey an argument. In some instances, it's easier to identify one of the appeals over the others. But if you examine a text closely and carefully, you'll often find these four rhetorical devices working in concert, working together. Okay? Now, an analogy that I like to use is the Beatles. So let's go ahead and examine this. There we are, the Fab Four. Each member of the Beatles played a vital role in creating the band's music. In a given song, however, it might be easier to identify a specific member's contribution. In the song Come Together, for instance, John Lennon's contributions are perhaps most apparent because he's singing the song. But when you analyze that text more carefully, we can begin to pick out the other members' roles. Have you paid attention to Ringo's drumming in that song? How would it sound if he played a more straightforward rock beat? How about Paul's bass line? When we examine a text rhetorically, we can begin to see how the components connect. Think of the four rhetorical devices like the Beatles. In some texts or elements of texts, one of the members takes the lead, but the band as a whole creates the effectiveness or ineffectiveness, if they're not working well together, of the text. So that's just a way for us to kind of think about this, conceptualize it. If you want to just describe one of the four devices to each of the Beatles, right? Then we can kind of see, right? So if we think of them as a unit all working together, we can conceive of these ideas a little bit more effectively, right? Now, like I'm saying, in some cases, it's easier to pick out ethos or pathos or logos or kairos, right? But when we really take a look at the text, when we really examine it closely, we can see that while there might be somebody taking the lead or one of the devices taking the lead, in the background that's still contributing to the effectiveness of the argument are the other devices as well in an argument that's working well together.